The story of Sonic, Toronto's youngest gang dealer.
Park, 19-year-old Salman Jogia. In the shadows of Toronto's Thorncliffe Park,
Why am
19-year-old
I hearing
Salman
something?
Jogiat, better known in the streets as Sonic, rose to infamy as the alleged leader of a violent street gang that drew the full attention of the city's guns and gangs unit.
There are
Damn.
95 charges in all, and police
Shotty.
allege the ringleader is a
Shotty.
Toronto man, Salman Jogiat, who faces by far the most counts at 42, including 2 of attempted murder and 8 of conspiracy to commit murder. He is just 19 years old.
By the summer of 2020, after an 8-month investigation, police executed a major takedown project targeting Sonic and his crew, laying nearly 100 charges ranging from attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder to
100
firearms
charges?
trafficking and drug dealing.
Damn, Shotty.
But it wasn't just the volume of charges that shocked the city or the age of the so-called gang leader. It was Sonic's boldness. Before his arrest, he was allegedly prepared to put a $100,000 bounty on the head of the man who killed his cousin, a chilling move that marked a turning point in the case. This wasn't just street talk. Police intelligence confirmed the threat was real, revealing a deeper level of organization, control, and violent intent. What began as neighborhood beef had spiraled into high-stakes retaliation backed by serious money, cementing Sonic as more than just a local figure. He became a central player in Toronto's growing gang conflict and an online topic of obsession and speculation. This is the story of Sonic.
Yeah, huh? The Thorncliffe right here for you guys.
Residents living in Thorncliffe Park say there's a change happening in the area and not a good one.
Thorncliffe did see year-over-year jumps in robberies, child abuse calls, and car thefts.
This area has been an area where they have lots of gangs and it's very threatening sometimes.
From the Thorncliffe area where police are on the scene of a shooting, they say several callers were
Which one did she say?
from the Thorncliffe area where police are on the scene of a shooting. They say several callers reported hearing multiple gunshots.
Thorncliffe shit!
Born on December 6, 2001, Sonic was the third of 4 children raised in a struggling immigrant household in Thorncliffe Park, a densely populated East York neighborhood. Once a racetrack and farmland, Thorncliffe Park, nicknamed TPK by locals, transformed into one of
TPK.
Toronto's most unique and diverse urban communities, home to more than 25,000 residents.
Yeah, I've seen
Known
an
as
ice
Little
truck.
Pakistan, over 63% of the population were immigrants as of 2016, with nearly 90% identifying as Muslim and large communities from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Syria, and Afghanistan. Sonic's parents immigrated from Gujarat, India, his father arriving in 1993 with only a 5th grade education and limited English. He scraped together a living by selling fruits and vegetables on street corners, sometimes supplemented by social assistance. His mother arrived in 1995 through an arranged marriage and stayed at home to raise her 4 children in a cramped cockroach and vermin-infested 2-bedroom apartment. Their household was plagued by poverty and domestic violence, set against the broader backdrop of a neighborhood marked by crime, economic struggle, and overcrowded housing. Sonic attended North America's largest elementary school, Thorncliffe Park Public School, where he was placed in special education classes as early as grade 1 due to learning difficulties. He was later diagnosed with a mild intellectual disability, his psychoeducational assessments ranking his cognitive abilities in the 3rd percentile. He was relentlessly bullied for his academic challenges and struggled with focus, memory, and learning. Despite occasional support, like a teacher who got him into a free ice hockey program, he eventually dropped out of school after being expelled in the 10th grade for robbery. Shortly after this, he gravitated toward the streets. He started selling weed to afford food, later moving on to crack and cocaine. By the age of 16, he was already in the system. He was convicted on October 5, 2018, for drug possession, drug trafficking, and failing to comply with a recognizance. He was sentenced to 18 months probation and received a mandatory weapons prohibition. But the real turning point came a year later when he was shot in the leg while attending the annual Taste of the Danforth Festival, an attack allegedly sparked by neighborhood tensions after he was seen wearing a Thorncliffe Park-affiliated sports hoodie. Rather than scare him straight, the shooting pushed him deeper into the streets. You see, even with a packed community center and programs like the Friday Bazaar trying to hold things together, TPK couldn't escape its struggles with gun violence. In 2018, the growing issue exploded onto international headlines when Faisal Hussein, a local kid, carried out the Danforth mass shooting. The gun was traced back to his brother, Fahad Hussein, a known member of a local Thorncliffe gang dubbed the Thorncliffe Park Kings. It was a harsh reminder that under all the community pride and immigrant hustle, the streets still had a heavy hand in shaping lives here. In addition to gun violence, Thorncliffe Park had been haunted for decades by deep-rooted gang violence, including long-standing tensions with crews raining from the nearby Flemington Park neighborhood. Flemington Park, often called Flemo by locals, holds a rich and often overlooked place in Toronto's musical history, particularly in hip-hop, rap, and R&B. Despite being a small, tightly packed neighborhood in East York, Flemo has produced an impressive number of influential artists who helped shape the sound and culture of Toronto's urban music scene long before it hit the global stage. With the help of artists like Cardinal and rap crews like GCP,
life like the wire set the streets on fire.
Flemo became one of the first neighborhoods where you could hear rap verses laced with local slang, references to Toronto-specific issues, and a storytelling style that felt raw and unfiltered. Flemo artists undoubtedly played a pivotal role in laying the foundation for what would eventually be known as the Toronto Sound. Annual block parties and underground shows were crucial in building Flemo's grassroots music scene, even when mainstream recognition was hard to come by. But while Flemo was carving out its cultural identity through music, it was also grappling with a much darker reality. The long-standing gang rivalry between Flemo and TPK wasn't just about proximity, it was a clash born out of poverty and territorial pride. Though only a short walk apart in East York, these two densely populated immigrant-heavy communities have been at odds for over a decade, with gangs like the Flemo Park Bloods and the Thorncliffe Park Kings exchanging gunfire, stabbings, and threats in a deadly game of retribution. Violence between the two intensified in the early 2000s when outlaw motorcycle gangs and the Italian mafia began hiring Afghan-affiliated groups from Thorncliffe to do their dirty work. The violence in East York reached its peak in 2006 with the savage murder of 17-year-old Omar Wellington from Flemo, who was reportedly stabbed, tortured, and left to die in a ravine near his home for failing to return a $1,500 firearm to his crew. The killing shook the city, prompting the Toronto Community Housing Corporation to install over 120 surveillance cameras throughout Flemo's low-rises at a cost of nearly $1 million. Yet, many were quickly vandalized, and by the following year, at least 22 cameras were inoperable. Throughout the late 2000s and early 2010s, police launched several targeted raids aimed at dismantling the crews causing carnage in East York, including the Flemo Park Bloods, Thorncliffe's Afghan Fighting Generation, and the Thorncliffe Park Kings. At the time, Canada began relying heavily on immigration enforcement to disrupt gang structures by deporting key figures, a strategy previously used to break up Tamil gangs in Toronto, Haitian gangs in Montreal, and Honduran gangs in Vancouver. However, traditional convictions were often in Montreal, strategy previously used to break up Tamil gangs in Toronto, Haitian gangs in Montreal, and Honduran gangs in Vancouver. However, traditional convictions were often hard to secure due to a lack of witness cooperation and a deeply embedded fear of being labeled a snitch. While these crackdowns helped reduce open conflict between Flemo and TPK, they didn't erase the violence, they simply changed its form. Today, the gang war has turned inward. Thorncliffe Park now faces a new wave of violence not from rival neighborhoods, but from within its own walls. A younger generation of Thorncliffe Park-bred gang members, raised during the height of the original feud, have begun turning on each other at an alarming rate. What was once about neighborhood loyalty has evolved into personal vendettas. Social media platforms like Instagram and YouTube have become battlegrounds, with diss tracks, Instagram lives, and encrypted stories serving both as threats and provocations. The music scene in the area has mirrored this shift, with local rappers like Roadrunner gaining attention for subtly referencing ongoing feuds and the street life that fuels them.
Runner, these scars so deep, I never go hell. Only time I feel alive when I pop these pills.
Roadrunner is a Pakistani-Canadian rapper from Thorncliffe Park, known for his raw storytelling and melodic flow. He first made waves with his 2019 single Never Again, followed by standout tracks like Freezing and Nightmares. Even after being shot 7 times and arrested during a raid the following year, where officers found around 80 grams of cocaine and more than $5,000 stuffed inside a backpack, Roadrunner's momentum didn't slow. He was placed on house arrest for the rest of the year, but used the time wisely, dropping his debut project Forever Alone, which topped iTunes Canada's hip-hop chart. Runner and Sonic were close, tight enough that Sonic made an appearance in Canada's hip-hop chart. Runner and Sonic were close, tight enough that Sonic made an appearance in Roadrunner's music video for the song Freezing, flashing a stack of cash nearly as long as his head. Their bond ran deeper than visuals, and the opening credits of Aftermath, a heartfelt track dedicated to his late friend Newski. Roadrunner calls for the freedom of Sonic, who was behind bars at the time of the song's release. Sonic was once Roadrunner's right-hand man, but after Newski was killed, the gang dynamics in TPK unraveled fast, setting off a deadly domino effect of bloodshed and revenge. Let's be honest, in the streets, getting finessed is the quickest way to take a loss. And whether it's in real life or online, the game doesn't change. If you're not moving smart, you're getting played. That's why you need Coopert, a completely free browser.
Got hit with the uppercutty, up, down, left, right, down. Wow.
Was arrested 2 months later and hit with 19 charges, including kidnapping, robbery, assault, and multiple weapons offenses. But jail didn't slow him down. Just 7 months later, police pulled over a vehicle at St. Denis Drive and Linkwood Lane, finding Newski with a loaded rifle, handgun, and cocaine. He and 2 others were arrested and charged with 13 offenses, including firearm possession and trafficking cocaine. Then came the 2019 road rage incident that made headlines. While driving a black Range Rover along Danforth Avenue, Newski crashed into another man's car. When the man began photographing the scene, Newski and an accomplice attacked him. When a 74-year-old bystander tried to help, Newski...
Hold on, you attacked the cameraman? Oh my goodness. This is unfortunate. I did not know. Wow. Bro, attacking the cameraman is beyond, like... Damn. Oh no.
Armed with a knife, assaulted him too, sending him to the hospital. Newski fled but was quickly hit with a warrant and eventually surrendered to police, facing multiple charges including assault with a weapon and robbery. Despite his mounting legal troubles, Newski's reputation on the streets only grew. Known for being fearless and confrontational, he became a respected name in TPK and was reportedly on his way to making $1 million purely from drug sales.
Whoa.
But by 2019, Toronto Police's Guns and Gangs unit had Newski and his growing empire under a months-long investigation. They called it Project Kraken. Launched by Toronto Police in 2019, Project Kraken was a major crackdown on the Chester Lee Gang, a Scarborough-based crew deeply involved in drug trafficking, firearms smuggling, and violent robberies across the GTA. Although Newski wasn't officially
You see how the Tuti only immediately grabbed
firearms smuggling
the cash?
and violent robberies across the GTA. Although Newski wasn't officially a Chester Lee member, investigators believed he was closely tied to their operations. This wasn't street-level crime, it was organized and calculated. One of their boldest tactics involved using the corrupt tow truck industry. Here's how it worked. Before a robbery, someone would fire a gun in a nearby plaza to draw police away. Meanwhile, a tow truck would ram into a jewelry store's entrance. Seconds later, masked crew members would flood inside, clearing out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of goods, all in under a minute. Police caught onto the pattern and started tracking them. They traced the gang's meetup spot to an auto shop on Crockford Boulevard in Scarborough. Setting up covert surveillance, they captured footage of robbery suspects and their vehicles regularly gathering there. After one heist, police swooped in. Surveillance footage showed
Whoa, look at the feds.
regularly gathering there. After one heist, police swooped in. Surveillance
The feds in the Chevy. Say no more. Chef pulled up in a Chevy. You know when they say, watch out for the feds, they in the Ford? Now we have to watch out for the Chevy. The feds, they in the Chevy. It's crazy. Now.
footage shows officers storming the lot, weapons drawn. Some suspects immediately surrendered, while others tried to flee, ditching guns, wallets, and even their pants as they scrambled over fences. Eventually, they were all caught. While there's no evidence Newski took part in those robberies directly, Toronto police confirmed he was a primary subject of Project Kraken. And by June 25, 2019, they decided to take him down. Around 8 p.m., officers spotted Newski driving his white Mercedes-Benz at Midland Avenue and Midwest Road. They began tailing him before boxing him in with unmarked cruisers. Plainclothes officers leapt out, guns drawn, ordering Newski and his 3 passengers to surrender. But Newski didn't comply. Instead, he hit the gas, ramming an officer and pinning his legs against another vehicle. In response,
they paused. I was gonna say, why am I not seeing this?
And his 3 passengers to surrender. But Newski didn't comply. Instead, he hit the gas, ramming an officer and pinning his legs against another vehicle. In response, another officer opened fire, hitting Newski multiple times. Newski was rushed to Sunnybrook Hospital, but pronounced dead. The injured officer survived and was released from hospital later that night.
In this moment, police surrounding a white Mercedes, guns drawn, what appears to be a fatal mistake. The white car moves forward, briefly pinning an officer.
Another police officer then discharged his firearm at the vehicle multiple times.
Bullets strike the driver, and police move in.
That they were doing CPR until the ambulance came. They continue, and they even continue CPR until they put him in the ambulance. So it didn't look good at all.
Neighbors said they heard at least 2 shots just after 8 o'clock last night. The 21-year-old was taken to Sunnybrook Hospital, where he later died.
Police officers were investigating the driver of this vehicle, and then in the area of Midwest and Midland, they decided to stop the vehicle.
According to the Special Investigations Unit, it was the Guns and Gangs Unit investigating the driver.
Newski's death sent shockwaves through his family and friends, but for the streets, it meant opportunity. Rumors quickly spread online that Newski had built a drug operation pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars, and with him gone, someone had to take over. One of those eager to step up was 16-year-old Nasrullah Abdul Rashid, better known as CC. But there was a problem. His buddy Sonic, who was a few years older and far more experienced, believed he was next in line to inherit the trapline. Although CC and Sonic were friends, the tension between them grew fast. Sonic felt seniority earned him the right to take over. CC, however, disagreed. The dispute heated up to the point they agreed they'd settle it face to face the next time they crossed paths. But the streets rarely leave room for fair fights. On April 5, 2020, at 10:42 p.m., Toronto police responded to reports of gunfire at a parking lot near the outdoor pool at 1 Leaside Park Drive. When officers arrived, they found CC inside a vehicle, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Paramedics performed CPR, but it was too late. CC was pronounced dead at the scene, becoming Toronto's 19th homicide victim of the year. The community was stunned, but what made it worse was the rumor that Sonic, his own friend, was the one who pulled the trigger. News traveled fast, and it didn't take long before people close to CC began plotting revenge. 2 months after the death of CC, on June 9th, at around 7:30 p.m., gunfire erupted beside Leonard Linton Park. A group was sitting in a parked car when another vehicle pulled up and opened fire. Police arrived shortly after and found 2 20-year-old men wounded. One of them was Maz Jogiat, aka Machu. Although one victim survived, Machu died later in hospital. Machu was well loved in the Thorncliffe Park community, which made it even harder to grasp why he had become a target of gun violence, not once, but twice.
A friend of the victims who did not want to show his face on camera says Jogiat grew up in nearby Thorncliffe Park and says this is not the first time he's been shot at.
I just know that it happened once before. He was shot at. He didn't get hit. His uncle got hit. He was a young kid. He was very family-oriented. He had a lot of family over here. He was loved by a lot of people.
Machu wasn't just CC's and Roadrunner's close friend. He was also Sonic's cousin, hence the same last name. Ironically, Machu had been trying to mediate the feud between CC and Sonic, hoping to prevent bloodshed. In the end, he became another casualty of the cycle of violence he had tried so hard to stop.
Wow.
Following the murder of his cousin Machu, Sonic made it his mission to hunt down those he believed were responsible. Unbeknownst to him, Toronto police had been intercepting his phone calls as part of an ongoing investigation dubbed Project Compound. An operation launched in late 2019, Project
Feds are going crazy.
Compound was aimed at taking down Sonic and his underlings after Thorncliffe Park saw a sharp rise in shootings and gang activity. Throughout 2020, police surveillance revealed Sonic's heavy involvement in street crime. Wiretaps caught him selling at least 98 grams of cocaine over the spring and summer. But it wasn't just drug dealing. He was also plotting robberies, kidnappings, and even murder. In one case, he used a GPS tracking device to stalk, then later rob Usman Munir, a man Sonic had unresolved issues with. When Sonic learned Munir was at a Hamilton shopping mall, he and his crew drove out there, forced Munir into his own car, and attempted to kidnap him. Munir managed to escape, suffering wrist and knee injuries, while his car was later found abandoned. Shortly after that incident, Sonic was shot again, this time in the arm while in Thorncliffe Park, though he recovered relatively quickly. Still, tensions only escalated. By July 2020, Sonic was informed that a man named Wahidullah played a role in Machu's death. Determined to get revenge, he and his associates planted a GPS tracker on a vehicle belonging to one of Wahidullah's family members. Using the GPS data, Sonic tracked down where Wahidullah lived and made plans to rob him. On the night of July 26, 2020, security cameras caught the moment Sonic and 3 others forced their way into Wahidullah's apartment, guns drawn. They stormed into the living room, where Wahidullah and another man were sitting. What started as an argument quickly escalated into a violent confrontation, as Sonic and one of his accomplices shot Wahidullah several times, then fled the scene. Wahidullah suffered gunshot wounds to his back, just above his right buttock, his right tibia, and his left foot. He had to undergo surgery to his bladder, bowel, colon, and abdomen, and had to have part of a broken pelvic bone removed. He was hospitalized for several weeks, including time spent in intensive care, and required physiotherapy and other rehabilitation measures afterwards. The other man found with Wahidullah also suffered gunshot wounds to his chest, flank area, and hand. He had to undergo surgery and also spent a considerable amount of time in the hospital. Sometime in August 2020, about a month after the shooting, Sonic learned that 18-year-old Mavia Tahir had also been involved in Machu's murder and police were closing in to arrest him. But Sonic wanted to get to Tahir first. Still under police wiretap surveillance, Sonic was overheard on August 11th, receiving a tip that Tahir had been spotted alongside another man, Rayan Adil. Wasting no time, Sonic hatched a plan to abduct Adil and force him to reveal Tahir's location. He even placed a GPS tracker on Adil's car and bought a handgun for $4,000 to prepare for the job. A little over a week later, wiretaps caught Sonic growing more desperate. On August 20th, he told associates he was willing to pay $10,000 for information leading to Tahir. Later that day, Sonic was recorded planning a kidnapping with an associate named Sabape, who said, "It's gonna work. We're gonna take that kid in his car." Sonic replied, "Yeah, that's what we're doing, fam. I swear to God," with Sabape adding, "He's gonna be crying like a and begging for mercy." The next day, Sonic upped the ante, discussing a $100,000 bounty for Tahir if direct capture failed. He also ordered another GPS tracker to be planted on Adil's car. But what Sonic didn't know was that Toronto police were ready to strike. Undercover officers removed the tracker from Adil's car, attached it to an unmarked police vehicle, and lured Sonic into following it. Once Sonic was locked in, multiple squad cars boxed him in. In a panic, Sonic tossed a loaded handgun out the car window, which police quickly recovered. Sabape was also arrested, found carrying another loaded firearm. Less than 2 weeks later, Project Compound reached its explosive climax.
Police seized cocaine, fentanyl, marijuana, MDMA, $100,000 in cash, and 7 firearms. There are 95 charges in all, and police allege the ringleader is a Toronto man, Salman Jogiat, who faces by far the most counts at 42, including 2 of attempted murder and 8 of conspiracy to commit murder. He is just 19 years old.
His age, yes, is of concern. It's a belief and alleged that this group purposefully set out to commit violent acts against targeted individuals for the sole purpose of monetary gain and retribution.
Less than 2 weeks after Sonic's dramatic arrest, Project Compound came crashing down. On September 3, 2020, Toronto's Gun and Gang Task Force executed a series of coordinated raids on 9 residences in Toronto and 3 in Cambridge. The results were massive. Over $100,000 in cash seized, 7 firearms recovered, along with a half kilo of cocaine, 18 pounds of marijuana, a stash of MDMA, and 65 grams of fentanyl. In total, 11 people were arrested, facing a combined 95 charges. At the center of it all was 19-year-old Sonic, who investigators named as the leader of the group. He was slapped with the most charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder and 8 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. And the dominoes kept falling. Just a few weeks later, on September 21st, police arrested 18-year-old Mavia Tahir, one of the original targets of Sonic's deadly manhunt. Tahir was charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder for his role in the killing of Machu. What started with the death of one Thorncliffe Park figure had spiraled into one of the most violent crackdowns the neighborhood had ever seen. But even with Sonic and many of his associates behind bars, the story didn't end there. Life inside jail was a whole different battlefield for Sonic. Court documents revealed he struggled with the transition, getting into multiple fights, being pepper sprayed by guards, and even refusing to leave the visiting room on 2 separate occasions. When staff ordered him out, he lashed out with profanity and threats, even telling one guard he would f*** him up. Still, jail wasn't all chaos for Sonic. Over time, he began making serious changes. He completed his high school diploma while in custody, enrolled in college courses, and took part in socio-emotional and anger management programs. He also reconnected deeply with his faith, working closely with Islamic religious leaders at the Toronto East Detention Center. Sonic eventually started leading prayers and teaching religion to other inmates, a sharp contrast to the violent persona that once dominated the streets of Thorncliffe Park. Because of the pandemic, Sonic's trial dates were pushed back to 2024. His first trial centered around the death of CC. During the proceedings, the Crown contended that Sonic had planned and deliberated over CC's killing and was involved either as a principal or as a party. Sonic testified in his own defense, admitting that he had shot CC twice. He claimed it was in self-defense, saying that CC had unsuccessfully tried to shoot him first while Sonic was seated in the back seat of a white Honda. Sonic further testified that after firing his weapon, he immediately fled the scene. His defense team further argued, backed by evidence from the pathologist, that the 2 shots fired by Sonic did not cause fatal injuries. Instead, they claimed a third party, standing outside the vehicle, ultimately killed CC by shooting multiple times through the passenger side door. Throughout his testimony, Sonic was asked about the identities of others involved in CC's death. Although he had sworn to tell the truth, he refused to disclose any names. He repeatedly explained he feared being labeled a rat, that a transcript of his testimony could reach the jail where he was being held, and that he or his family could be harmed. When pressed by the Crown Attorney during cross-examination, Sonic was quoted saying, "I cannot answer that question for you, ma'am. I'm afraid for my life." After multiple warnings from the judge, Sonic was cited for contempt of court. With the support of pathologist evidence, Sonic was found not guilty in the murder of CC. Instead, he pleaded guilty to contempt of court for refusing to name others involved, moving straight to sentencing. Reading his decision, Justice Campbell was clear. By refusing to follow my direct orders about questions properly put to him, he was clearly guilty of contempt of court. Indeed, his refusal to follow those orders strikes at the very heart of the justice system, and now compels the imposition of a significant penitentiary term of imprisonment for his blatant contempt of court. The Crown sought a 4-year sentence. The defense recommended between 24 to 30 months. Campbell, however, ruled that a 3-year penitentiary term was appropriate, noting that it was consistent with past sentences for similar cases. Before Sonic was led away, Campbell addressed him directly, urging him to change his path. "I'm confident you can do better," he said before pointing out Sonic's accomplishments like completing his high school diploma and starting college courses while in custody. Sonic's time in court wasn't over just yet. On June 18, 2024, sentencing for Project Compound was underway. In relation to his involvement in the attempted murder of Wyadolla, the intercepted wiretaps revealing his drug trafficking activities and his persistent efforts to track down Mavia Tahir. Sonic was found guilty of 1 count of attempted murder, conspiracy to forcibly confine, possession of a firearm while prohibited, and trafficking in a controlled substance. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison. After receiving credit for 69 months already served, Sonic was left with 8 years and 3 months still to complete. According to Dr. Vitopoulos, a psychologist who worked closely with him during his incarceration, Sonic has expressed that he no longer feels hate toward anyone. Once released, he hopes to stay committed to his religion, marry his longtime girlfriend, and find steady work in the construction industry. Whether he can truly leave his past behind remains to be seen, but for now, Sonic appears ready to turn the page on a life that almost destroyed him.
Wow. This is a crazy documentary. This is a nice one.
I'm going hard, I need to go again. They call me slipping, fucking watch, but I don't slip again.